quite intimate.
I'm sorry, it was...
He's coming next week, then I can say. Yeah, I think.
The Iranian witnesses
They should be in
front
here.
and center, yeah.
Yeah, they should come.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Nice to quite shit with me.
Hi, thank you.
You're afraid of me. No.
Okay. Bonjour, chers amis. Bienvenue. Welcome. 6 months ago, on Human Rights Day, our Raoul Wallenberg Centre on Human Rights released a landmark report documenting the massive repression in Iran and calling for the sanctioning of the 19 major architects of repression who were responsible for the arrest, imprisonment, torture, and execution at all levels of civil society in Iran, of the civil society leadership. As I said then in the press conference, perhaps one of the last that was held in the West Block at the time, and I quote, 2018 has witnessed an almost unprecedented assault on human rights in Iran amidst a culture of impunity. It was the international community's indifference and inaction re Saudi Arabia which emboldened that country's leadership and took us down the road to Khashoggi's brutal murder. Inaction regarding Iranian leaders engaged in multiple murders, torture, and imprisonment is also emboldening the architects of repression in Iran who must be held to account, unquote. 6 months later, the assault on human rights in Iran has been relentless and has only intensified amidst the reigning culture of impunity, including the sustained assault on women's rights, the mocking abuse of hostage diplomacy re-imprisoned dual nationals, the Kafkaesque conversion of environmental protection into a capital criminal offense with a criminal trial as we meet, devoid of any semblance of due process. The continuing arrests days ago of students, workers, journalists, human rights defenders, and the outrageous conviction and sentencing of the iconic women's rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh, who was sentenced to 38 years of imprisonment and 138 lashes for a woman in her mid-50s, a virtual death sentence. And astonishingly enough, 2 days after this, Iran was elected to the UN Commission on the Status of Women, a dramatic case study of not only impunity, but impunity being rewarded. Fortunately, we have today, I believe, the best array of witness testimony that has ever been gathered on Parliament Hill in terms of the repository of experience and expertise of our Iranian witnesses today. I'll introduce each in turn. The first is Masih Alinejad, a renowned Iranian journalist, author, human rights activist, and was the founder of the White Wednesday campaign for women's freedom in Iran. She recently won the Geneva Summit for Human Rights Women's Rights Award for, quote, giving a voice to the voiceless and stirring the conscience of humanity to support the struggle of Iranian women for basic human rights, freedom, and equality. She will speak here today on behalf of the women's rights movement.
Hi, everyone. I have been driving 10 hours from United States of America to Canada to raise the voice of Iranian women. And today I'm here to say that when Iranian women are fighting back the oppressors and the oppressive laws, then do not hesitate to raise their voices. I launched a movement 5 years ago, My Stealthy Freedom, and I asked women to practice their civil disobedience, to share and express themselves instead of waiting for a leader or waiting for a country to come and save them. You can be the savior. You can be your own leader. You can be your own voices. And now the movement is White Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, women wear white or take off their white headscarf and walking unveiled, which is a punishable crime. But they risk their lives because they know freedom is not free. So they pay the price because they want to be heard. This is 21st century, and they think this is not right to tell women what to wear, how to behave, and what kind of lifestyle to follow. Now our movement has more than 3 million followers. And it went to another initiative which is called My Camera is My Weapon. Women are walking unveiled and filming themselves while being beaten up, while being arrested, while being told by morality police what to wear, and while even being humiliated in the street. Videos goes viral, get 9 million views, 12 million views. But these women want to be heard. So they want you to understand that this is the time. You have to take an action when there is no freedom for press in Iran, when there is no an independent judiciary system, when there is no freedom of religion, when there is no freedom of political freedom, when there is no free election, when more than 100 people got killed just because of protesting against a stolen election, when 29 women of White Wednesdays movement got arrested only in one day just because of protesting hijab, when right now 4 activists of White Wednesdays, and including Vidam Wahed and their lawyer, are in prison just because of protesting against hijab, then there is no justice in Iran. It's the responsibility of all the international communities, including Canada, to take an action. Instead of sanctioning the people of Iran, we support target sanction, Magnitsky sanction. We want you to sanction all the oppressors. The main propaganda tool of the Islamic Republic, Iranian national TV, which bring the activists on TV to do false confession. Sanction the Revolutionary Guard, which beaten up and kill people in the street just because of peacefully protesting. So we want Canada to understand that they have to ask for the release of all those women who protested peacefully against compulsory hijab as soon as possible because they want to be heard. So this is our demand, and this is 21st century. Do not call compulsory hijab part of our culture, because calling a discriminatory law part of our culture, this is an insult to a nation. Do not say that causes Islamophobia, we don't want to touch the issue. Because the law which lashes us, which arrests us, which kick us from our own country, that causes Islamophobia, not the women who are fighting against oppressive and the discriminatory laws. And do not say that this is an internal matter, we don't want to get involved. I want to give you one example and end this presentation. If Canada comes with a law and the government asks all the Muslim women to remove their hijab and attend to an international tournament in Canada, what would the rest of the world do? This is what we want. Right now, this is 21st century, the Islamic Republic forced all the female athletes to wear hijab in order to attend in an international tournament. The Islamic Republic forced all the female politicians to wear hijab, all the tourists to wear hijab. So we want you to stand up for your own dignity, for freedom of choice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Merci. Our next witness is Richard Ratcliffe, as you know, the husband of imprisoned British-Iranian charity worker Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, who was arrested in Iran. It's now almost 3 years while on holiday with her daughter. He will be speaking on behalf of, I can put it, the community of foreign and dual nationals held hostage in Iran, which include, as you know, amongst them, a number of Iranian Canadians.
Thank you, everyone. So as Professor Cutler said, my name is Richard Ratcliffe. I'm the husband of Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, who's been held in Iran now for just over 3 years. She was arrested on holiday with our 1 3/4-year-old daughter, who was taken from her and held initially in solitary confinement, later sentenced to 5 years imprisonment on secret charges, and a second court case was opened against her. She is held explicitly as leverage against the UK. We've had messages, clear signals have been sent as to what the Iranians want. And she's not the only one. There are a number of foreign and dual nationals held in Iran, Americans, Canadians, Europeans, Canadians like Saeed Malikpour, like Miriam Mobani is held, and her late husband, Kavus Saeed Amami, lost his life last year in Iranian custody in mysterious circumstances. This has become a part of Iranian diplomacy. It is, the use of people with outside links, typically with dual nationals. There's a gaming of consular law to be able to do so, and used as leverage in different ways. It is a very tough process to go through for all of the families. It is, in fairness, Iran is not unique in doing it. There are other countries that take citizens for leverage. Canada has experience with China, amongst other countries, currently. And there is an encroachment of the norms of diplomacy, where this is becoming a new pattern. Why I'm here today is to call on, to thank the Canadian Parliament for hosting us, to call on the Canadian government to do more for its Canadian citizens, to do more for work with like-minded countries, to stand up and hold accountable those who are involved in these acts, and to make it really clear that both at the UN, but also through individual accountability of things like Magnitsky sanctions, that actually this has to stop. The world needs to be safe for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I just want to mention that both Masih and Richard testified this morning, compelling testimony before the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Our next presenter here today will be Shaprak Sajarizadeh. She was sentenced to 20 years prison in Iran for leading women's rights protests. Happily, she fled to Canada, where she's now living in exile. She was named by the BBC as one of the 100 most inspiring and influential women around the world. And she has become a leading voice on women's rights in Iran. And she will speak of her experiences both as a former political prisoner in Iran and as a women's rights activist.
Hello. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Shaprak Sajarizadeh. Today, Iranian government is trying to eliminate women's movements and our struggle against gender apartheid and sexual discrimination. They are systematically arresting and prosecuting women's rights activists, specifically White Wednesday women who are peacefully protesting forced hijab and the denial of women's freedom of choice that it represents. They continue to prosecute women activists in this unethical way of arrest, torture, threats, and long prison sentences. It shows that the Iranian authorities do not intend to stop violations of human rights, but are the perpetrators of them, spreading fear in the society. As an Iranian woman who opposed forced hijab with a peaceful act of civil disobedience, I witnessed violence and injustice during my interrogations in courtrooms and inside prisons. What happened to me was not an isolated case. Apart from women activists, the government also attacks the defenders of other targeted groups. The government also put more pressure on human rights lawyers to stop them from defending activists. My lawyer, Nazrin Sotoudeh, is facing 148 lashes and 38 years jail sentence in total. Her only crime is having defended her clients and standing for human rights. Canada gave my son and I asylum, and I'm so thankful. I'm asking Canada to stand in solidarity with other activists and human rights defenders and put pressure on Iranian officials by sanctioning the individual architects of human rights violations and the judges who are the real criminals in courtrooms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shaprak. Our last Iranian witness will be Mariam Shafipour. She's a former Iranian student leader, herself also a former political prisoner, and she will speak on behalf of imprisoned women human rights defenders in Iran, including Narj Mohammadi, Hatina Dami, and Nasrin Sotoudeh. Right.
Hi to everyone. Today may be a memorable day for me and all those people who have been victimized due to systematic violation of human rights by mafia regime ruling Iran. The Canadian government can play a crucial role in supporting us and struggling against this human rights violation in Iran. Iranian people are looking for a fundamental change in their lives. We have never given up peaceful protest, even during the most violent repression by an ideological sect. Sorry, I have some kind of stress. That has plundered the wealth and natural resources of Iran. 3 months ago, the Reporters Without Borders organization disclosed a secret document from the Iranian judiciary, which exposed by the horrifying depths of domestic repression. It detailed that in Tehran alone, about 1,700,000 of dissenters, ethnic, religious minorities, journalists, and political and civil activists were arrested, called to trial, imprisoned, or executed from the year 1979 to 2009. The initial studies showed that many names of the victims are not even in this document, that this staggering statistic represents only a fraction of the true number of victims. Equally, other types of repression, such as asset seizure, deprivation of education, and denial of employment, has not been listed. Consider the population of Tehran during these years and compare it with the number of victims. It means in every family there has been at least one victim. Just imagine this volume of violation and victimization imposed on Iranian people by this mafia sect. I believe we can and we should help the Iranian people in their struggle for human dignity and a responsible government, and challenge this mafia sect which has plundered the oil and wealth of people. This can be achieved not through putting the common people under more pressure, but through sanctions against the authorities, suppressors, and those who loot people's resources and then invest in Western countries like Canada. I hope the Canadian government pursues this action of solidarity and support for the Iranian people. Sanctions Sepah Pastaran, IRGC, a cult of crime which has caused thousands of deaths in region and has control over the economy of Iran. Sanction ستاد اجرای فرمان امام, the execution of Imam Khomeini order, ECO, a terrorist organization which has stolen people's property at the beginning of the revolution and now. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is the possessor of all these properties. Sanction the IRI propaganda outlets that interfere in Canada's democracy and harass our diaspora. The day that Islamic Republic is not capable of disseminating its ideology out of the borders is the day of its death. It will be a sparkle of hope for Iranian people to know that people from other countries will hear their voice and that it won't be drowned out by the propaganda. Just imagine, for example, a member of Trudeau's cabinet embezzles billions of dollars and transfer the money to Iran, an investor, and the Iranian government welcomes him warmly. How would Canadians feel toward Iran? This is exactly how Iranian people feel the Canadian government, and this is how Canada has treated the thieves of Iranian who have stolen from the Iranian people, such as Khavari. I believe that Canada can strengthen its benevolent and human rights foreign policy to support Iranian people. In doing so, Canada will not only standing up for human rights in Iran, but protecting its own national security and sovereignty from the threats posed by being so welcoming to perpetrated of such violation. Human rights violation and terrorism in every corner of the world are like a black hole which threatens the peace and security of people everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. We'll now have brief statements from representatives of each of the parties. I'll mention them all, and then they'll each speak in turn. I will have Michael Levitt, who presided over the Foreign Affairs Committee hearings this morning on behalf of the Liberal Party. We have here present both Peter Kent and Garner Dennett from the Conservative Party, and I believe Peter Kent will speak for the Conservatives. We have Hélène Laverdière, who will be speaking on behalf of the New Democratic Party, and Elizabeth May on behalf of the Green Party. I just want to acknowledge before they begin the presence here. I see Senator Linda Frum, who's been a leading spokesperson in the Senate on these matters. Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Professor Kotler and the Raoul Wallenberg Centre and our Raoul Wallenberg Parliamentary Caucus for hosting this important press conference during Iran Accountability Week. And we heard, we had the first day of testimony today in the Foreign Affairs Committee. There will be 2 additional sessions in the Subcommittee of International Human Rights next week, where we will continue to hear testimony from Iranians suffering under this brutal and oppressive regime. The message boiled down to this today in committee, and we heard from Dr. Ibadi, Ms. Alinejad, Mr. Kosar, and Mr. Richard Ratcliffe. Accountability. Accountability to the women forced by a repressive regime to wear compulsory hijab. Accountability for the Iranian leaders who thrive and profit from corruption and impunity, including the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and other senior officials and judges. Accountability for the prisoners that suffer, including dual nationals, religious leaders like the Baha'i, journalists, academics, and as we heard today, environmental activists. Accountability for the terror that Iran exports around the world, well beyond the Middle East, threatening millions through its incitement and its support of terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah. In Canada, we must continue to push for this accountability, and we have the tools to do it. We have the tools at the United Nations, where Canada has continued to lead the annual resolution condemning Iranian human rights abuses. And we have the legislative and legal tools as well. We have the Justice for the Victims of Terrorism Act. We have the Magnitsky Act, which is able to sanction individual gross human rights abusers, something that was passed in this latest parliament. And we also have the listing of the IRGC on the Canadian terror list. These are tools that we can use to hold this brutal and repressive regime accountable for its multiple bad deeds. And I know I stand with all members here when I say I support us doing just that. Thank you.
First of all, let me thank Erwin Kotler for his work over the years in this 7th Iranian Accountability Week, and Senator Frum and the leaders of all parties in the House. It is a real honor to stand with these distinguished human rights defenders here today. The testimony they've presented in the Capitol today and tonight should serve to reawaken a Canadian consciousness of 4 decades of chronic, gross abuse of the rights we so often take for granted here in Canada. The rights of free speech, of religion, of assembly, of association, of political choice. These rights are not only denied, but those who dare challenge the Iranian regime, in public or in private, face arbitrary detention, torture, and even death imposed by Iran's revolutionary court, where judges often serve as prosecutors, Trials often last merely minutes. Evidence is often confected or the result of forced confessions. I haven't been in Iran since journalistic assignments there in the 1980s, but the testimony these human rights heroes present here today should not only reawaken Canadian awareness of the continuing mass repression of the Iranian people, but re-energize our demands that the Canadian government speak more forcefully against the regime's domestic and international crimes in international fora. Canada's Magnitsky Act sanctions should be more broadly applied, specifically against individual human rights violators in Iran's so-called legal system, including prosecutors, judges, police officers, and prison guards. And I know and I thank and recognize the Wallenberg Centre, which has compiled a list of, I think, 19 individuals in this category that should be added now to Canada's Magnitsky list. And the time, of course, is long overdue for Canada to list all elements of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, as terrorist entities which exist solely to uphold the brutal Islamist dictatorship. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. I think your presence here shows the importance of the issue. You're quite numerous. And thank you to Professor Cutler, not only for this, not only for everything he's done on Iran, but for being such a strong spokesperson on a range of human rights issues. Really, thank you, Professor Cutler. I will be brief because I know time is running. I think you have a meeting at 1, and I think they are the star and the people you want to talk to, probably. Mais je voulais quand même dire que, oui, je suis d'accord avec vous, mesdames. Les protestations pacifiques ne devraient jamais être réprimées. And as you said also, no government should tell a woman how to dress. And but I'm happy to see the strength of your movement. And we have to be, nous devons être à la hauteur de votre force. On sait le prix de l'inaction, on sait le prix du silence. On l'a vécu trop souvent dans le passé. Il faut agir, il faut parler, il faut répondre. Et comme plusieurs de mes collègues l'ont mentionné, nous avons des outils. En travaillant tous ensemble, tous les partis, nous avons réussi à nous doter de la loi Magnitsky. C'est vraiment un outil qu'on devrait utiliser de manière plus systématique, surtout parce que justement, ça n'affecte pas les populations. Alors, moi, je souhaite plein de succès aux conjoints et aux merveilleuses femmes qu'on a derrière nous. Sisters, we won't forget you in your fight. Merci.
Merci, c'est un grand honneur d'être ici parmi mes collègues et les vrais héros des droits humains, les droits des femmes. Here on this Iran Accountability Week, I want to again extend, as my colleagues have, our thanks to our former colleague, the Honorable Erwin Kotler, for leadership on this. I don't think any of us could fail but be incredibly moved and humbled by the courage of human rights activists facing the most repressive brutality and abuses of human rights in Iran. I think when we look to White Wednesdays, as explained to us here today so movingly, how could we not identify in solidarity with a commitment to assist women who are prepared to risk their lives, document with their cameras against a repressive regime for the most basic of human rights. That they do this nonviolently is again an expression of their courage. And on behalf of the Green Party of Canada, I commit as well that we do everything we can in the name of human rights, in the name of women's rights, for accountability in Iran.
I want to express our appreciation to each of the representatives of the political parties for their effective statements today. I want to acknowledge also the presence of John McKay, another important member of our Raoul Wallenberg All-Party Parliamentary Caucus on Human Rights, and call on Anita Vanderbilt for some closing remarks, continuing Iran Accountability Week deliberations.
Thank you.
one of the most important things that we can do as parliamentarians, as the Canadian Parliament, is provide the platform and give voice to the very courageous women that we have here with us today, and women all around the world, and men who are fighting for human rights. As the chair of the International Subcommittee on International Human Rights, we will be having two sessions next week, one on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, one on Thursday at 1 o'clock. We will be hearing from the women that you heard from today, and we will be hearing from a number of others as well. We'll have 7 witnesses in total, and we really believe that by doing this, we can first show our solidarity, but also make sure that those voices are heard, and we amplify those voices around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. We'll now ask if you have any questions for any of our participants. Yes.
Abigail Beeman, Global News. Question for you, Professor Kotler. You've long been a champion for this issue. I believe this is the 7th Iran Accountability Week. Can you give some context as to why nothing shakes the regime, even as there's growing, mounting pressure from many international voices?
Well, the voices are coming from the NGO community. The voices are coming from human rights movements and civil society. We don't yet have enough compelling voices coming from the leadership of the community of democracies. And it's very important that when we have a global, resurgent authoritarianism, of which Iran is a dramatic case study with its international tentacles, so that it's not only massive domestic repression, but as we've heard in terms of the international criminality involved, we need action on behalf and by the leadership of the international community. In a word, and I would sum it up this way, we need to make the question of the massive domestic repression in Iran a justice and foreign policy priority on each of our government agendas as a matter of principle and policy. Yeah.
My name is Roland Martage.
No, I'm afraid.
Sir, you're not with the media. I'm not letting you ask questions.
No,
not a member of the media.
Okay.
Okay, any other representatives of the media that may want to ask any questions? So I want to again thank all the participants for being with us. I think this has been one of the most important and indeed, I hope, effective briefings that we've ever had in terms of the prospective action that needs to be taken, as illustrated and as inspired by, in particular, our Iranian witnesses here today. This has been the most effective individual and collective testimony that I've witnessed in all my years on this issue here in Parliament. And I want to thank them and our members of Parliament who have been here today for summing up not only the nature and character of this massive domestic repression, but the specific action that has to be taken to address and redress this on behalf of democracy, freedom, and human rights. Thank you all for being with us.
Can I answer the question? Sorry. You said that nothing shake the government of Iran. I just want to make it clear that the peaceful movement within the society, the most prominent civil disobedience within the society, actually shaking the Islamic Republic. And the only thing is that the whole world kept silent. That actually helped the government of Iran when they shake the hand of the oppressors. Before Iran deal, all of the members of the European Union, they had a condition when they wanted to go to Iran. And their condition was like, first, we have to meet with the human rights activists. But after the deal, all the European member of the parliament, they went there without even care about all those activists who are in jail. So actually, I have to say that when the people of Iran risk their lives and they manage to shake the regime, and then the international community keeps silent, that actually you have to find the answer. That why nothing, shake the Islamic Republic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making that important and summary, effective statement on behalf of all of us for what needs to be done. Again, thank you all for being with us.
No, really good. Yeah. Really good.
Thank you very much.